Hello, one, and welcome all. We are back with another White House press briefing. It looks like this one will be Caroline during the press briefing today. We've had a couple unusual ones in the past. We just had a Donald Trump focused one, JD Vance before. But with everything happening in like Minneapolis and stuff, they just had a new White House press briefing scheduled last night for this morning. And it looks like Caroline is going to be the recipient of most of the questions and answering for today. So that does mean this might be the first time this market's available for a little bit. Caroline itself, but it looks like she is going to be the one asking and answering questions. And we're going to get her in about, I'm not sure how long. But White House press briefing about to start in a second. And I have no bids. So I have to come up with something. I know this is going to be Minneapolis focused. It's going to be pretty sad, actually. It's probably going to be a pretty sad White House press briefing. But Canada is interesting, Canadian. Is Alex writing Canadian or something? Canada's an interesting protest. Is she going to say this isn't peaceful protest? That might be a way that comes up. This isn't peaceful protest, she could say. Canada's interesting. We're getting a Canada tariff question. I would like FBI. That makes sense for the investigation that's going on with Renee Good and as well this shooting. Agitator. I might have to go yes, agitator. I might be forced to. Greenland, home, housing. This thing has been Minneapolis focused. Radical left will probably hit. I'm not even gonna lie. For this type of press conference. Maduro no seems pretty free, but not even gonna touch that. Maduro no. Terrorists. Why is terrorist so low if he's gonna be classified as the domestic terrorist? Did Caroline tweet something or? Caroline, leave it. Oh my gosh, what the hell? That ain't Caroline, leave it. I'll tell you that. Ending sanctuary city policies is common sense. Stay tuned, says Lindsey Graham. Minneapolis. Did she call him a terrorist? Domestic terrorist? I like agitators, though. Agitator, left-wing agitators right there in the tweet. We'll go 100 shares of yes, agitator. Where's agitator? I mean, agitator's right there in the tweet itself. They are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct. We're going to go 74 cents. We'll do these 172 shares. Paid agitators, left-wing agitators, yes. I believe that's going to hit. Have we got Caroline yet? No. What else? Agitator. Illegal alien's pretty decent, but I mean, she might like dodge it for a little bit. Biden. I feel like Biden's a lock. She's gonna say all these people are from the Biden administration. The only question is like, yeah, you could not get Caro, and it could be someone else, but I would like that little bid. I can buy up this 40-cent. The TVs are on in the back. That's a good sign for Caro to be there. The TVs are on the screen, so that's a good sign for Caro at least to show up and talk. All right, writing Biden, yes. Agitator, yes. This has gone down for some reason. This is going really down. Is it like Caro not set to speak or what? Why is everything plummeting? Everything's down on the yes side. Where's ICE? Got ICE National Guard. That's still at 94. I mean, people are believing that she's going to be the person speaking. I would like fraud. I like fraud and Biden. For those two. Fraud, Biden, Greenland. Will we get a Greenland question? I would assume yes. Somalia, why, says Nick. You like Somalia? It's pretty cheap. Does Caroline say Somalia? Let's see. Somalian. Caroline. When's the last time she said it? Alright. Caroline Leavitt. When's the last time she said Somali? #107, January 7th. 85 of the 98 were charged with Somali descent. Somali migrants. I would go like a little yes. Maybe. Somali. I mean, this is going to be Minneapolis focused, which it probably will be. I kind of rate it, but new bombshell report from the New York Times. Somali migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly 1 billion people, is the thing she read out. I'm not sure if that relates. Somali migrant. Alright, when's the last... That was the last time she spoke at one. I feel like Somali yes is pretty good then. We'll go... We'll go yes, Somali there. I think that's the last time she spoke at one, 107, because there was Trump beforehand, J.D. Vance beforehand. She's going to get the reins at this one. She might likely say Somali. I would think terrorist and radical left, but I would like agitator. Like, let's try to get 200 shares. Place a limit there. On agitator, yes. Place a limit on Biden, yes. Try to get 100 shares, Biden, yes. I would like walls fray, that's way too high. You need to cut it. Illegal alien. Makes sense. Fraud. Could go yes Somali, no fraud for a little hedge. A little cheeky hedge. I would like yes fraud. I would like yes fraud. I'm gonna be honest. I think this is a lock. I be popping bottles. Shipping in. Alright, I'm gonna get yet some of this yes fraud. 84. Wait, you're not Caroline. What the hell? You're not Caroline. Leave it. I would like that fraud at that price. That'd be cool. Biden, yes. Agitator, yes. Somali, yes. Which went down? It's okay. Credit? He doesn't get this credit he deserves. I would like agitator, fraud. They just say domestic terrorist. They could call the guy a domestic terrorist. That would be kind of crazy. Yeah, we got a White House stream, so that's better. Let me pull up the White House stream. White House X stream. A little bit faster. Alright, going yes Somali. Canada is interesting. Agitator. Kind of go no Davos, but she might reference it. You saw Davos earlier with Greenland. I would like a little FBI. Because of the investigation. Push it up a little bit. This looks like it's gonna start. Agitator, way down. Agitator is way down. The left-wing agitators, they don't understand. People not believing it's real. It's a real thing. Maduro would be interesting. I had Maduro yes for the last press conference Caroline did, and she didn't hit it. So I would probably lean no, but I don't think it's safe yet for a no. If that makes sense, it's still possible to hit, but she literally was asked a Maduro question and didn't say Maduro, so it might be like out of the news cycle, if that makes sense. We're now on to other things, but she's just more likely to say, Venezuela. very specific to say Maduro's name. Someone's on the no at 83 cents. I feel like it's a little bit greedy, but it's a little bit greedy. Healthcare this low? So just say healthcare, even when it's not about. Yeah. So I got burned on Maduro. Yes, last time. I think there's a video I made. It was like the guy asked her like 2 Maduro specific questions, and she still dodged it. Healthcare, yes, she could still say without a question. Someone's gonna ask. Is someone's gonna ask about domestic terrorists? I feel like they might. I feel like someone might ask a question about, like, the other people calling him a domestic terrorist. We're gonna see.
Good afternoon, Jackie. Thank you for that.
Good afternoon, Hit.
Thanks for coming in on a snow day for the rest of the government in the country. And as much of the country feels the impacts of that winter storm, President Trump continues to monitor the situation closely, and he has remained in constant contact with FEMA and emergency responders. President Trump also quickly approved 12 federal emergency disaster declarations within 24 hours for the states of Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia, enabling these states to access critical federal resources to supplement their response efforts if needed. These declarations will help state-led efforts of turning power back on, clearing roads for emergency services, and keeping communities safe. The White House will continue to correspond directly with governors and local officials in the coming days, especially in those states that were harshly impacted by this storm. I would also like to address the chaotic scenes in Minnesota over the weekend.
Here we go.
Nobody in the White House, including President Trump, wants to see people getting hurt or killed in America's streets. This includes Renee Good, Alex Preddy, the brave men and women of federal law enforcement, and the many Americans who have been victimized at the hands of illegal alien criminals.
There's illegal alien.
Saturday's shooting remains under active investigation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI. The Customs and Border Protection is also conducting their own internal review. As President Trump said yesterday, the administration is reviewing everything with respect to the shooting, and we will let that investigation play out. But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota. For weeks, Governor Walz and the Mayor Jacob Fry and other elected Democrats were spreading lies about federal law enforcement officers who are risking their lives daily to remove the worst criminal illegal aliens from our streets: murderers, rapists, pedophiles, human traffickers, and gang members.
Oh, she didn't say
Governor Walz and Mayor Fry have shamefully blocked local and state police from cooperating with ICE, actively inhibiting efforts to arrest violent criminals. They have also used their platforms to encourage left-wing agitators to and obstruct federal officers who are just trying to lawfully perform their duties, which has created dangerous situations threatening both these officers and the general public and Minnesotans alike. This is precisely what unfolded in Minneapolis on Saturday morning. Obstructing federal law enforcement.
I won money betting that she would lie.
Illegal. This used to be a universally accepted position in the United States. Amid the hysteria, we must remember how we got here to this moment today and what this Democrat opposition is about. Former President Joe Biden and the Democrats opened America's borders for 4 years, inviting tens of millions of illegal aliens from all over the world to flood into our country. Among them, violent criminals who terrorized American communities and have inflicted devastating, permanent pain and harm on law-abiding Americans and their families. Yet we never saw outrage from Democrats or their allies in the liberal media over these horrifying crimes against U.S. citizens. The pain of American angel families was ignored and dismissed because it undermined the Democrat narrative. Innocent Americans like Jocelyn Nungray, Laken Riley, and Rachel Morin are just a few of the many victims savagely murdered by illegal alien criminals. Earlier this month, an illegal alien from Mexico with a long criminal history who came into our country under Joe Biden's administration threw a baseball-sized stone at a school bus carrying children in New Jersey and fractured the skull of an 8-year-old innocent child. President Trump promised accountability to these American families by securing the border, deporting every illegal alien who has committed crimes, especially and most importantly, violent crimes. Nearly 80 million Americans voted for him to deliver on that very promise, and he is. As the duly elected president, the president is fulfilling the will of the people by arresting and removing these threats from our country in cities from Los Angeles to New York and, yes, Minneapolis. Yet Democrat leaders in Minnesota with sanctuary city policies have actively defied federal immigration law and the will of the people. And as a result of that defiance, 2 Minnesotans have now tragically lost their lives on the streets of Tim Walz's state. It is President Trump's hope and wish and demand for the resistance and chaos to end today. That's why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning, and he has outlined a clear and simple path to restoring law and order in Minnesota. Number 1, Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and all Democrat leaders should turn over all criminal illegal aliens currently incarcerated in their prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with any illegal aliens with active warrants or known criminal histories for immediate deportation. Number 2, state and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens who are arrested by local police. And then thirdly, local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crimes, especially violent crimes. If Governor Walz and Mayor Frey implement these common sense cooperative measures that I will add have already been implemented in nearly every single other state across the country, Customs and Border Patrol will not be needed to support ICE on the ground in Minnesota. ICE and local law enforcement can peacefully work together, as they are effectively doing in so many other states and jurisdictions. Additionally, President Trump is calling on the United States Congress to immediately pass legislation ending sanctuary cities once and for all. American cities should be safe sanctuaries for law-abiding citizens only, not for dangerous illegal alien criminals who broke our nation's laws and do not belong here. We hope Governor Walz will do the right thing and continue to work with President Trump to keep the American people safe following their call this morning. Americans overwhelmingly want exactly what President Trump is delivering: strong borders and strict immigration enforcement against the worst illegal aliens, of which there are still hundreds of thousands to deport from the interior of our country. The most peaceful way to carry out this vital public safety mission is for Republicans and Democrats to do it together, and for state and local law enforcement to work together with federal law enforcement. We want to let cops be cops. You wouldn't know this continues to be a very popular policy position from the biased media coverage over the course of the last few days, but polling shows huge support for this exact thing President Trump is calling for. More than 80% of Americans favor deporting illegal aliens convicted of violent crimes. A country unable to deport criminals who enter it illegally is no country at all. The open borders agenda of Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the Democrats was already on the ballot on November 5th, 2024, and it was resoundingly rejected. President Trump will never back down from his promise to deport violent criminal illegal aliens and make America safe again, and he welcomes all cooperation in that effort. With that, I will answer your questions, and Jordan Conradson, why don't you kick us off today? Thank you for being here.
Caroline, Jordan Conradson, Gateway Pundit. I have a few questions. First, with respect to the shooting in Minneapolis, we're seeing massive outrage from mainstream media and the left, but I'm just wondering, where was that outrage when Ashley Babbitt, an Air Force veteran, was executed by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd, who she posed no threat to in the U.S. Capitol?
Well, you raised a very important point, which I also believed I just raised as well in those opening remarks, in that there has no doubt been selective outrage by the liberal biased media in picking and choosing victims and highlighting their stories. And as I've said, President Trump does not want any Americans to lose their lives in the streets of America and in American communities across the country. He believes what happened on Saturday is a tragedy, but every life is equal to President Trump, and that's why the lives of Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray continue to matter to him and be an utmost priority to him to this very day. And it's unfortunate that we did not see the same type of sensationalist media coverage over the tragic deaths of those innocent American women and girls across the country as we are in the wake of this tragedy that took place on Saturday. Gabe. Sure, go ahead, Jordan.
I want to get your response to this. The Arizona Attorney General, just days before this shooting in Minneapolis, she seemingly encouraged rioters to go out and shoot and kill ICE agents. And I'll quote her here. She said, "If you reasonably believe your life is in danger and you're in the house or in your car or on your property, you can defend yourself with lethal force." And she said that you can't tell if ICE agents are law enforcement or imposters, and it becomes an issue of whether you reasonably believe
we got some yes protests.
Do you have a response to that, and does the White House believe that she should be held accountable for these remarks?
Such dangerous rhetoric, as I pointed out, is exactly what has brought us to this position today, where you have elected Democrat officials across the country who are encouraging left-wing agitators and crazy people to go out and unlawfully obstruct lawful immigration enforcement. Again, these brave men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and the federal enforcement are just trying to do their jobs to enforce our nation's immigration laws and to go after the worst of the worst in this country. I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage the Arizona Attorney General to look at the video of an ICE agent in Minneapolis. He was approached by left-wing agitators who were honking their horns and were screaming slurs at him, and he rolled down his window and he said, "What are you doing? I am out here trying to catch a child predator, somebody who has convicted crimes against an innocent child, and you are trying to obstruct me from doing my job." This rhetoric against ICE, comparing them to Nazi Gestapo, Donald Trump's police force, is despicable, it is shameful, and it is precisely what has led to the escalation of tensions in Minneapolis and in other places across the country. Gabe, go ahead.
Be looking into her for justifying violence?
I would defer you to the Department of Justice on that.
Thank you, Caroline. Gabe. Regarding Minnesota, on Saturday, the Department of Homeland Security posted that Preddy looks like he wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Stephen Miller on Saturday posted that called Preddy a would-be assassin. Why did administration officials jump to conclusions before an investigation had even been conducted?
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend. As for President Trump, whom I speak for, he has said that he wants to let the investigation continue and let the facts lead in this case.
With regards to the deployment of Tom Homan to Minneapolis, should the deployment of Mr. Homan to Minneapolis be seen as a sign that the president is dissatisfied with how the officials on the ground had handled the incident?
No, Mr. Homan is doing an exceptional job, and he has been working with Secretary Noem and President Trump over the course of the last year. Secretary Noem still has the utmost confidence and trust of the President of the United States, and she's continuing to oversee the entire Department of Homeland Security and all of the immigration enforcement that's taking place across the whole entire country. Of course, Secretary Noem is also in charge of FEMA, and we are in the wake of a brutal winter storm where hundreds of thousands of Americans have been impacted by that. So, borders are home. Is in a unique position to drop everything and go to Minnesota to continue having these productive conversations with state and local officials, and I know that he's catching a plane in just a few hours to do just that at the request of the president. Jennifer.
On Saturday's shooting, has the president been briefed, and have you been briefed on specific details of the shooting? How many shots were fired? How many guns discharged? And I mean, did the protesters' guns go off, or only the officers' guns? Do you have any of those details?
Again, the investigation is continuing, Jennifer, and we will let the facts lead, and we will let the facts play out in this investigation. I do know that HSI and FBI are conducting interviews with those that were involved and the agents who were involved in this unfortunate tragedy on Saturday.
Are the president up to date on all those details?
The president is obviously very much on the ball with respect to this investigation. I think he's made that quite clear with the various statements that you've seen him put out, and also the 4 points that the president has outlined as well to Governor Walz, and to encourage him to cooperate with ICE and with the administration. Mary.
Thanks. To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with that?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judgment?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. On Stephen Miller's comments,
I bought the no
will
terrorist.
Stephen Miller be apologising to the family of Alex Pretty for calling
I bought
him,
no terrorist
quotes,
there.
an
She looks
assassin
like she
who tried
dodged
to
it.
murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt or killed and losing their lives in American streets.
82.
And we mourn for the parents.
Don't be
As
greedy.
a mother myself,
Don't be
of course,
greedy.
I
Come
cannot
on.
imagine the loss of life, especially losing
I'm not
one's
penny
child.
jumping, you are.
And that same empathy from the president goes for the parents of angel families, and parents of victims of illegal alien crime across our country as well. And that's exactly why the president continues to be wholeheartedly committed to deporting the worst of the worst criminals
We'll
from
get
our
some
country.
narco-terrorists here.
Why don't we go to the back? Kelly.
Caroline, does the president believe that the killing, though, was a mistake? Has he expressed that at all?
Again, the president has said, we have to review it, and this investigation needs to continue, and he's letting the facts on the investigation lead itself.
Does he want body camera footage?
Just getting some no
released to the
narco-terrorists,
public?
because
Now,
she was
That's
asked
not something I've
specifically
heard the
domestic
president commit to,
terrorists,
so I
and
won't
she
do that
dodged
from
it.
the podium. Sure.
Caroline Leavitt.
How serious is the administration taking allegations that local
Caroline
and state
Leavitt.
officials in Minnesota are actively
Leave it out on the table.
coordinating with demonstrators through encrypted or non-encrypted communications, as well as providing government resources
I
to
need a
achieve
fraud
immigration
question. That's what I
enforcement
need.
operations?
I'm sorry, Carrie, could you repeat your question?
How serious is the administration taking
Caroline,
allegations that
that
local and
neck
state
game, crazy.
Minnesota officials are communicating with demonstrators to basically impede immigration officials?
Well, we've definitely seen
Protest.
active organization amongst these left-wing groups, Carrie, and it is something that I know the FBI and the Department of Justice are looking into. Again, it is illegal to unlawfully obstruct lawful immigration enforcement in this country. And these agitators are making it nearly impossible for ICE to do their jobs and for federal law enforcement to carry out the will of the American people to deport the worst of the worst. I would just encourage everyone to please imagine in this room, all of you come to the White House every day to report on the President of the United States and the administration. You come into this briefing room, you walk through the gates of the White House. Just imagine if there were left-wing agitators or agitators of any kind who were in your face, who were doxing you, who were harassing you, who were physically threatening you, who were biting off your fingers in the case of two Border Patrol agents we saw this past weekend in Minneapolis. That would make it very difficult for you to show up and do your job here at the White House every single day. That's what these officers in Minneapolis are facing. That's why the president is calling on Governor Walz and Mayor Frey for these three very simple and common sense points of cooperation so that ICE and local law enforcement can work together. Again, we are just asking for police to be police. And if you ask any law enforcement agent or official,
I just need a fraud question
work
here.
with their federal counterparts
A
at the
fraud
state and
question
local
would be
level
great.
and
Would
vice
save
versa.
me a little bit. We got
Caroline.
Iraq, yes. Somali,
Thanks a lot,
yes.
Caroline. Two questions.
Protest,
One is
yes.
looking forward. The role of Mr. Homan. Is he being sent by the president to diffuse the situation that exists right now on the ground? Is he the point person essentially for the White House
Is he a
in terms
terrorist
of
or
trying
what?
to tamp down the tensions that exist right now in Minnesota?
Well, Mr. Homan is the point person for cooperating with state and local authorities and corresponding with them, again, to achieve this level of cooperation to subdue the chaos on the streets of Minneapolis. And I would just point out that Mr. Homan is someone who has been lauded for many, many decades for his experience working in law enforcement. In fact, this is a Washington Post headline from 9 years
What is
ago,
this?
2016.
Meet the man
the White House is honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone
White
in this
House
room that it was former President
article.
Barack Hussein Obama who awarded
Barack
a medal
Hussein
to Mr.
Obama
Homan.
hit.
So he's obviously very
On
qualified. He
Caroline.
has the full
Look at
trust
that.
and faith
Caroline
of the
Weekly.
president. He will continue to have these meetings in the hopes that ICE and local law enforcement can cooperate and work together to have successful immigration enforcement, as we've seen in almost every other state across the country. Jake.
And secondly, Caroline, can you talk a little bit about tomorrow's trip by the president to Iowa, what the purpose of
Iowa?
that trip is, and what the goals of that trip are?
Affordability?
Sure, yes. Tomorrow, President Trump will be traveling to Des Moines, Iowa. He will be making a local visit at a local business, and then he will be giving a speech
Oh my God,
on
it hits.
affordability and
I
on
should
the
have bought it.
economy. I'm very much
Ah,
look forward to being
no,
there,
I
to
should have
meeting with
bought
the great
it.
people of Iowa, but also lawmakers as well.
I literally
Jake.
called it. I was like, oh, this
Couple
question's
quick
gonna
questions.
hit
First, does the
affordability.
president remain really
Oh my
confident
gosh.
in Christian Noem's ability to lead the DHS?
Yes.
And then just
It was at
secondly,
18
just
cents. I
on that
should
Wall
have
Street
bought
Journal
that
reporting that we
stack.
saw yesterday, the president said at some point that
okay.
the immigration enforcement officers would leave Minneapolis. Did the Saturday killing of Alex Pretty expedite that withdrawal?
Okay, we're buying more Somalias.
To your first question, the answer is yes. He still has confidence and trust in Secretary Noem. To the second question, I would point you back to what I said earlier. If Governor Walz and Mayor Fry implement these common sense cooperative measures,
Oh my
CBP
gosh.
will no longer be needed to
Should've
support
bought
ICE
that.
on the ground in
Affordability is
Minnesota.
right there.
ICE and local law
It's all right.
enforcement will peacefully work together as they are effectively doing in
That
so
might be
many
the only
other
yes she
states and
hits, man. She's
jurisdictions
gonna
to
dodge
remove violent
protests this
criminals
whole
from
time.
American neighborhoods across the country.
That was a bad buy.
To ask the president to remove the immigration enforcement officers?
He asked the president to scale down, and the president reiterated what the president put out in his statement yesterday and what I'm sharing with all of you as well. I would just add on this level of cooperation a few statistics that I think are very important.
Somali.
7 of the top 10 safest cities in the
Come on.
United States
Somali.
cooperate with ICE. And we've seen historic turnaround in safety in cities that have chosen to cooperate with
They
ICE,
don't
that are not
protest?
just led by Republicans, but also look right here in Washington, D.C. We had a great level of cooperation with Mayor Bowser and the local government,
Mayor
and we have been
Bowser?
able to remove
Look at that.
thousands of illegal aliens from the District of Columbia, where you all live, so you can thank President Trump for that. The murder rate in Washington, D.C. has plummeted as a result. There were no riots, there were no protests, nobody
Yes!
was
Protests.
tragically killed as a result
There were
of
no
that level of
protests. We'll take
cooperation
that.
between federal and local authorities. And again,
Okay.
that's all the president is asking for
Okay.
in Minnesota.
We will
It's
take
totally
that. We will
common
take
sense.
that.
Jared, go ahead.
Thank you. Caroline, in this process, you continue to describe the situation in Minneapolis as chaos. Was there any mistake made by Secretary Noem that led the president to send Mr. Holman there?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your
Yeah.
question. Did Secretary Noem make a mistake which led to...
She made
question?
any mistake that could lead the president
Got
to
it.
send
Stupid
Mr. Holman to Minneapolis?
No, as I already mentioned, Mr.
as I
Holman
already
has
mentioned.
been working alongside Secretary Noem and for the president
Stupid
over the
question?
course of the last year. And again, he's uniquely positioned to hop on a flight to Minnesota today to continue this correspondence with state and local authorities, and that's what he's going to be doing. Fran.
Caroline, is it the White House's position that Americans have the right to show up to these ICE operations and film, document, or protest the law enforcement actions?
All Americans have a First Amendment constitutional right, of course.
To protest.
But Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede and obstruct
She kind of dodged
lawful
it. Right there, if she didn't
immigration
hit it, I would have been
enforcement
mad
operations.
already.
That is actually
She
a
didn't hit it
crime,
there.
and it's something that we've seen taking place in the streets of Minneapolis, which
I would've been
again
mad.
is leading to these dangerous circumstances that these
I thought she would've
federal law
said
enforcement officers have
Everyone
been
gets a
forced to work
right
with.
to peaceful protest.
Back to the call with Governor Walz this morning. The president described it as respectful. He said, we seem to be on a similar wavelength.
Fraud.
But you had strong criticism for the governor and the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, just now. So could you explain the difference in tone between
Difference between
what the
Trump
president had
and
said in his True Social post and I think some of the criticisms that you just levied from the podium?
Fraud?
Fran,
got
I
fraud
think
here?
the criticisms that I laid out, I'm painting the picture for all of you in this room, are what led to the moment that we are in today, where Governor Walz and President Trump are having a conversation, a constructive and productive conversation to end the chaos and the lawlessness that has taken place in Governor Walz's state.
Okay.
Chris, Elena.
Thank you. I had a question. With Homan now going to Minnesota, is Gregory Bovino also going to remain in Minnesota overseeing these ICE operations?
Mr. Bovino is a wonderful man, and he's a great professional. He is going to very much continue to lead Customs and Border Patrol throughout and across the country.
Somali would be
Mr. Homan
great.
will be
I
the
just
main
need a
point of
fraud
contact
question,
on the ground in
man.
Minneapolis.
And to follow up, given what we've heard from several Trump administration officials, people like Stephen Miller, as people point out, calling him a domestic terrorist, but saying that Preddy was out to massacre law enforcement.
Domestic
Why
terrorist.
not require ICE agents to wear body
Masks.
cameras to clear up some of the disputes that we are hearing from witnesses and video footage versus what the administration has been saying.
Well, that's a policy
Radical left
question
at 2
that I
cents
know
is crazy.
the policy folks in the
Who did
building
that?
are having with members on Capitol Hill, and I'll leave it to them and the president to make that decision.
And I just one final
I need a
question is
fraud
on,
question
you were talking
so
about the
bad.
level of
Okay.
cooperation that the president talked about with Governor Walz. Will the administration commit to cooperating with local officials on this investigation into Alex Preddy?
The president spoke about this with Governor Walz and said he would have a discussion about it. He did not make a commitment, and so therefore I won't make that commitment here. I would just remind all of you in the media, because I've seen a lack of reporting on this fact, there are investigations into what took place on Saturday. The Homeland Security investigations and the FBI have teamed up for an investigation.
There needs
and
to
there's
be
also an internal
investigations on
CBP
fraud.
investigation,
Come on.
an internal review of what is
fraud.
happening on the ground in Minnesota. The president supports those investigations, and as I've said repeatedly, he wants to see
Come
them
on.
move forward. Phil.
Come on.
FBI Director Kash Patel said in a Sunday interview, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest." Does the president believe the Second Amendment rights remain in effect even when protesting?
The president supports the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely. There has been no greater supporter or defender of the right to bear arms than President Donald J. Trump. So while Americans have a constitutional right to bear arms, Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede lawful immigration enforcement operations. And any gun owner
I don't know if
knows
she'll
that
hit any
when
of the other
you
stuff.
are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms, and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising
Supreme
the
Court,
assumption
probably,
of risk
maybe?
and the risk of force being used against you. And
Supreme
again,
Court
that's
question would be
unfortunately
interesting.
what took place on Saturday.
Will his mission continue to be focusing on illegal immigrants with a criminal history,
Oh,
or
come
will
on.
it be on
Somali,
illegal immigration
please,
generally?
Caro.
Mr. Holman will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws, especially deporting the worst of the worst criminals in Minnesota who have committed violent offenses. And I would just remind all of you that this important work is continuing to be carried out. In just the last few days,
Oh,
I'm
come
happy
on,
to
fraud.
provide this packet to anyone in the
Fraud
room.
Somali?
ICE has arrested many, multiple
too much illegal
violent
immigrant.
criminals, illegal aliens within Minnesota. Many of them have convictions for assault, driving under the influence, fraud. This individual here I'm looking at was an aggravated felon with multiple convictions for larceny, fraud, and forgery of checks.
What's his
theft,
nationality,
drug
Caro?
possession, domestic assault,
Come on.
inflicting bodily harm on another, criminal convictions of larceny, identity theft, again, charged with driving under the influence. These are extremely dangerous people
Fraud
who Governor Walz and Mayor Fry have allowed to roam
Off
on their
of
streets,
this.
and all the president is asking for is cooperation to arrest individuals like this and deport them from the United States of
Oh
America.
my God. Oh, you put it Somali there, Caro.
So this weekend, the president posted that this is a cover-up of the fraud in the state of Minnesota.
Oh
He
my
also
gosh.
posted
Please,
Minnesota
Caro, hit
is a
it.
cover-up. These both happened after the shooting. So given that these came after the
Somali.
shooting, what is the this here? What is the cover-up he's alleging?
Yes, it's a good question. I've spoken with the president about this at length. What the president is referring to is the fact that you have Governor Walz and, again, the mayor, who have been encouraging these left-wing agitators to come out and to harass and to dox and to threaten ICE and to make this conversation about and smear lies about federal law enforcement who, again, are just trying to do their jobs in an attempt to distract from the widespread, massive fraud that has taken place in their state. Billions and billions of dollars
Somali.
has been stolen from law-abiding taxpayers in Minnesota, and the administration continues to be very focused on getting to the bottom of it, and especially, and the president raised a good question over the weekend, with respect to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who now has a net worth within the millions.
Come
and
on.
one must ask themselves, why and how is that possible? Is she connected to the fraud rings that we have seen taking place within her state and her own district? It's a question the American people are raising, and the president believes it's one worth answering.
That was right there. Ilhan Omar.
Comments from Stephen Miller and Secretary Noem. You've made clear the
Oh
president
my
wants
gosh.
to see the investigation play
Somali
out.
was right there, Caro. Come on.
Details. Is he concerned that some of those
Ilhan
statements
Omar.
made by other officials risks public
There was the fraud question we wanted, but didn't hit
Again,
Somali
the
there
president
so
believes
close.
that these investigations are credible, they are continuing, they are active, and he wants to let them play out. Alex.
Is the administration willing to separate DHS funding from other funding bills in order to avoid a broader shutdown?
Look, at this point, the White House supports the bipartisan work that was done to advance the bipartisan appropriations package, and we want to see that passed. Policy discussions on immigration in Minnesota are happening. Look, the president is leading those discussions, as evidenced by his correspondence with Governor Walz this morning, but that should not be at the expense of government funding for the American people, which would include, as you know, Alex, FEMA funding, and we are in the midst of the storm that took place over the weekend, and many Americans are still being impacted by that. So we absolutely do not want to see that funding lapse, and we want the Senate to move forward with passing the bipartisan appropriations package that was negotiated on a bipartisan basis.
And secondly, there's another round of Russia-Ukraine talks this weekend, Sunday. If you can walk us through with the president, how he'll be involved in that, if at all. We'll be talking to President Putin, President Zelensky ahead of those meetings.
I'm not tracking any scheduled calls at this point in time. However, the president remains deeply involved, and of course he's being apprised by his advisors, namely Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Witkoff, on these talks. They had a multilateral meeting this past weekend, which didn't get a ton of coverage, but that was historic in nature, where the president's team has really brought two sides of this war to the table together to move the ball closer towards peace. So the president is not giving up on the peace process. He obviously just met with President Zelensky when we were in Davos, Switzerland, but I'm not tracking any calls scheduled for this week. On one more foreign policy point, I will point out, as you all saw, the last remaining body of the hostages, Israeli hostages in Gaza, has been returned. This is a huge foreign policy feat for the President of the United States, for the State of Israel, and frankly for the whole world. The President made the impossible possible, and so it's great news for the President, for the United States, for our allies, and also for peace in the Middle East. And I understand that more than 20 new additional countries have also signed up to join the newly established Board of Peace with respect to the rebuilding of Gaza, which is another historic accomplishment for this president. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you in Iowa tomorrow.
Oh, it's done. It's done. That's it. Caroline, rugging again with the clock. That was pretty short, huh? Caro, are you looking at the floating clock again? You ended that one real briefly, huh? All right. We did all right. Our Somali didn't hit, though. That would have been a clean sweep on Somali, yes. But we made some money. But, big loss on Somali, yes. That would have been huge. She almost hit it on the Ilhan Omar question, but she dodged the Somali community right there. But we hit protest, yes. Fraud, yes. Biden, yes. Agitator, yes. They were all like in the 70s, so it's not too much wins, but no terrorists. We caught that MOG a little bit, and yeah, $35. Peanuts. We made peanuts on this market, we'll be honest. We could have made a lot more if I was a little bit smarter on some of my sizing. The fact I went harder on Somalia, it was because it was cheaper, but if that hit, we would have been up $400 or something. We would have been up like $400, but we're up $35. It's all right. She didn't say Somalia. That was so close. She was so close, man. She brought up Ilhan Omar. The fraud. It was right there. It was right there, man. It's unlucky. Another Caro reg, though. Look at that. She ended it early. Come on, Caroline. All right. Dub, though. A little small dub on Caro. On that White House press briefing. Mainly covered Minneapolis shooting. That was it. We got like one Board of Peace question at the end. But, man, I could have got some more no's on some stuff that wasn't Minneapolis related in hindsight. But I was scared that this would go a little bit longer. Maybe I need to take more context into when the last one happened. Because this one happened pretty soon right after the last one. it was kind of a response to Minneapolis, but it's also like they're not going to talk about much else because they already covered a lot of the other stuff. So, could have played it like that, but it's all right. At least I didn't go Galvo Snow. That would have been bad. That was a buzzer beater. It was looking 9 cents is what it was getting to. So that's all right. Hey, money, green is green, baby. Green is green, all right? I'm not going to say no to green. And that's decent, though. We'll take it. Not going to say no to green. $35, we'll take it. Buy-in, yes. It's just, we did hit Somali. It's all right. I've been popping bottles. W. Caroline, leave it. We'll call it there. All right. Small win on the Caro on that press briefing. Quite a brief briefing, if that makes sense. She ended it quite early. So, not much else. We'll just take the win. We'll take the win. Hope you guys won as well on that Caro.